Hello, you hear me?
Loud and clear. What's up?
I am Angel.
What did you want to talk about today?
Okay, Sneako's Pokimane take. Okay, so yeah, I just saw this last night. I don't remember which video it was on, but essentially the take where he's like, I guess you could just say like simp hating, or he wasn't even hating the simps, he was hating Pokimane.
Which one? What? I've heard so many takes from Sneako and Pokimane and everything recently. Which one was this? Remind me. Refresh my memory.
So he was like, they all love her, but she doesn't love you. She's just sitting there and she's just making money off you. And I can't remember what else he said, but basically,
okay,
just like,
basically with her having to do like her being fake, basically, right?
I guess. Yeah, I guess you could say that because like although she's literally just sitting there playing her game, making like jokes or whatever she does.
Sure.
I don't actually like know a ton of her content or anything, but I find it an interesting, I guess, juxtaposition or maybe hypocritical statement because Sneako's like out here like peddling conspiracy theories. And it's like, bro, how are you making your money? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying he doesn't do good content ever and he doesn't talk about some good things that need attention drawn to them. But it just seems like it's kind of a strange take to have about somebody's content when you're literally saying like the queen eats babies or ate babies, whatever. And then also there's the larger conversation, which is, you know, him and whether he's like red pill or whatever he wants to call himself, where they think women should be feminine and girly and cute and fit into this box. But then when they use that feminine, girly, cute thing as their like career or like as to their own advantage or whatever, then it's like seen as this like super hateful succubus type thing. So
there is a really weird thing that was pointed out to me a long time ago. I don't know why this is the case or what is going on. I don't think it's like a consciously like hateful thing, but when I noticed it, it was very, very, very irritating. And there's this phenomenon where like porn will be okay, video game porn will be okay. Like if I were to go and watch somebody play a video game and there's a porn scene in the video game, that's fine. But like if a woman were to cosplay a pornographic character from the video game and stream that, all of a sudden there's a problem with that. I don't understand why. There's like a lot of weird views of like sex and sexuality and where they can appear and when it's acceptable and when it's like, and when people like freak the fuck out about it, that I don't fully understand. Because some people get really, really, really mad at like booby girls and stuff, which I actually think is super fucking fine. If you want to hate booby girls and shit, I think that's your God-given right to do so. But it's really weird to masturbate to porn, to go crazy over booby girls when they show up in almost any other area. But then when you meet a booby girl, then you get really fucking mad. I don't understand that. If you're like a Christian conservative and you don't like porn and all of that 100% of the time, then fine, go for it, hate away. But if you're somebody that like jerks off and loves like porn and all that shit all the time, but then when there's like a girl doing that type of content somewhere, you get really ass mad about it. I super don't get that. That's very fucking weird to me.
It's a very weird disconnect.
Yeah.
I don't know why it exists. It kind of relates a little bit to when we talked about last time, because you were saying you don't think the content on Twitch should be like, you know, porny or whatever at all because of the kids being there. And I said what I said, which was like my first example was like rap videos, you know, kids often see those and whatever. Then after we were done, like a couple days later or something, I thought to myself, like, wait a sec, like so many video games are marketed to kids and all female characters have their asses and tits out and they're wearing like skin tight like latex outfits.
Yeah, but it's like awesome for some reason. Yeah, I don't understand why.
Not only is it fine, it's the norm. It's like that's what they look like, whether it's a movie, video game, that's literally what they look like at all times. You never see them like wearing a big ass hoodie, or if you do, it's like very, very rare, right?
Yeah.
And you never see like older women.
Sorry.
Well.
Okay, hold on. Someone in YouTube chat says, repeating status quo talking points, no depth. No, the lack of depth is when you respond with some stupid shit like, oh, well, actually, it all depends on the context. Newsflash, if you've ever played a video game in your entire life that has tits in it, it didn't need those tits for the game to work. There is not a single sex scene in any of the Witcher games that needed to be there for that plot to work that way. You are fucking brain dead. You have the surface level take. If you honest to God were playing The Witcher 3 and you're like, you know, that game was pretty good, but what really sent it over the edge was that scene where I could Triss and see the fucking boobs come out, or the fucking white witch lady, or the whatever the black-haired was who was inferior to Triss in every way. No, that's the service level take. Shut the fuck up. You don't need tits in any video game. You have them there for one reason and one reason alone, and that's entertainment. It's the only reason they're there is because you like looking at boobs. And for you to pretend that it's anything different makes you the fucking delusional one, okay? Go ahead. What were you saying?
Yeah, skin tight outfits. Oh, and they're never older girls, right? You sometimes have older dudes, right? In video games, like old wizard guys or old like tough dudes with guns. When do you have like a hot, or like doesn't even have to be a hot old lady? It could be like a grizzled old fucking weird lady. I don't know. Like it's very fucking rare.
Well, that's kind of like, that also just goes along with like the dating norms, is that like men are considered attractive up to their 60s, almost 70s now. Although I will say that like women have been pushing more and more for better representation media. It's a lot better today than what it was even 10 or 15 years ago. It's gotten a lot better. I think we're seeing more like older women. I say older women, but I mean like women in their 30s and 40s.
Women with like a single line on their face. It's like, oh my God. Yeah. And obviously women of color too. And variety of, representations. Okay, so there was sort of like a secondary part to this Sneako Pokimane thing I want to talk about.
Yeah, go for it. Oh, you also get like really weird on that thing too. And not to single out Sneako, because there's a lot of because a lot of people have these takes. Fans of women content creators, if they were to act in ways that fans of male content creators act, they would get called simps, even if they do the exact same thing. Like, I have a fan base. I have arguably one of the most dedicated fan bases, I think, on the internet. I think I have like the most active creator subreddit on the internet, even for people that have more fans than me. If I was a girl, all of my fans would be called simps, but instead they're just called like terrorists or internet harassers or whatever. But if I was a girl and you saw my fans in like LSF arguing shit, they would all be called simp losers that are only there for my. And I even noticed, actually, I even grow my own fan base, because my own fan base is like 95% men. So naturally, we've got a ton of fucking incels. If I have a conversation with somebody that my fan base finds annoying for a long period of time, they're like, oh, I hate this guy. Sneako never learns. Like, they're all very critical of the things that he says and the things that he does. Anytime I get like posts about Sneako that are negative on my sub, it's all because of the things that he says and what he does. But when it's about like fucking Lav, or when it's about like any of these other girls that people don't like, it's just because like, oh, Destiny's simping, or it's because he's after pussy. Blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay, well, if I treat a guy the same way that I treat a girl, you ascribe like completely and totally different intentions depending on who the person is. There's a lot of like really fucking annoying like double standards there when it comes to how people evaluate each other's behavior, but yeah. Like,
obviously, if the people involved, like say it's you and Lav, for example, if it is two like bi / like people that could be attracted to each other, right? Like hetero or bi or whatever. Then it's like, okay, we know that there's the potential there for attraction, there's the potential for flirting, whatever. To assume that it's like all based on that, it just kind of like discredits, or like attempts to discredit the entire conversation. So I don't know. I think it's dumb.
I don't know.
So I wouldn't preach, or what was it? Is that video which was like those women who were they all in their 20s? I feel like I remember.
Oh, it's the video where they were like talking about like dating preferences and stuff or something.
Yeah, like what kind of men, and they all like want like guys with really high incomes or whatever.
I think some of those women must have just been like I know that everyone in chat thinks it's just like crazy. Blah, blah, blah. But I think some of those women were young and hadn't worked before. That's the only thing I can think of, because there's no way that anybody that had ever worked before would have been like, I want a guy with like an okay income. I'd say like $400K a year. There's no way that somebody that's worked a job before it would ever say something like that. I don't believe it. Like, I don't think it's because they were. Yeah, it wasn't because they were insanely fucking stupid women. It was because they were just people that hadn't worked, I think was the thing. Yeah. But,
or just like have no experience with people in the workplace, like and what like career trajectories look like.
Yeah. And I also think it's important to know, and I said this too, it's important to know what the status of these people are as well when they're making like certain demands. So like a girl saying something like, I want a guy that like is doing okay, that's like making 6 figures. That sounds like really privileged and entitled, but it's like, well, where are you pulling these girls from? Because if you're pulling like 5 girls from like Columbia Law or some shit, or like, if they're going to like some UC school and they're in like decent programs, like, yeah, these girls are like top like 5% earning women probably, who are going to be looking for like top 1 to 5% earning men. Like that, it makes more sense, as opposed to if you're pulling them out of like a state school in Iowa and they're saying stuff like that. Well, now it's a little bit more ridiculous, but it's kind of important to know the background. And it's an online internet show, so my guess is a lot of these girls are being pulled from like in LA or places like that, so it makes more sense depending on where the geography is. But yeah.
Right. Okay. And then so at the end of that video, I think it was Ava who was like, times have changed. Women are out studying and out earning men. It's scary, or something to that effect. And then like hearing that, I was just like that is not that recent, right? So then I looked it up, which is like what I've got here on my little document, and it says, so I grabbed a paragraph from this one website. It says, by the early 1990s, the labor force participation rate of prime working age women, those between the ages of 25 and 54, reached over just reached just over 74%, compared with roughly 93% for prime working age men. The share of women going into traditional fields of teaching, nursing, social work, and clerical work declined, and more women were becoming doctors, lawyers, managers, and professors. As women increased their education and joined industries and occupations formerly dominated by men, the gap in earnings between women and men began to close significantly. So that's like already the early 1990s, which is like 30 years ago, right?
True, so, but that's a trend that like started then, but it's been continuing and going further and further and further, I think, right?
Yeah, I just think it's a bit odd I can't imagine Abba's that much older than like mid 30s. So it's like his whole life, this started at basically when he was 0, and he's still trying to like catch up. I don't know.
Well, I think the issue is that we have pretty conservative dating standards still in terms of how we relate to each other, but we have a highly progressive society when it comes to income structure. This is what I was thinking of. There was like a perfect video that encapsulated this. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the biggest feminists in the world are oftentimes conservative women that are doing careers like in entertainment, like in like pundits or whatever. So like Tommy Lauren Southern, right? These people will talk about like traditional men, but it's like, you guys are hardcore feminists. You're strong, independent. You have your own careers. You're famous. You don't need no man, et cetera, et cetera. Like you guys are like doing the feminist dream, whether you like it or not. You really are.
Yeah.
There was a video that Tommy Lauren put out that was really interesting. And basically, she was screaming like, I don't want none of these lazy fucking mans. All these boys, these guys have no jobs. They're fucking losers. They haven't moved out yet. They don't have houses, blah, blah. And she's like ranting on some social media, TikTok, or maybe Vine. I don't know. This is several years ago. But yeah, she's ranting. And the only thing that I was thinking was like, on one end, I'm like, yeah, sure, I agree. Go off, queen. But then on the other hand, something that I thought up was, it's interesting that women have stepped into traditionally masculine positions when it comes to the workplace, as in they're pursuing careers and they're earning a lot of money, but men aren't allowed to step into traditionally feminine roles like taking care of the house. Like if you went into the world as a man and you were like, I want to be somebody that just kind of like takes care of the house, maybe takes care of the kids, you're a fucking loser to like 90% of women. Like you're going to be a loser, even if it's like a
women.
Yes, even if you're like even to like feminist women, most of them are going to look at you and it's like, you're kind of a loser, okay? But women used to do just that, and that was like the epitome. That's what you wanted. I want a really young, hot housewife that can have a kid or two and take care of the house. And that was like the apex of what a woman could be. So women have stepped in traditionally masculine roles, which I think is great. I love that. I think that's fine. But men aren't allowed to step into traditionally feminine roles, which I don't know if I would want them to, but the dating standards for women have been a lot slower to adjust than their workplace status. So while women are earning more and more and more, they're still also looking for men that are earning equal or out earning them, which is getting more difficult when, like, if you go to colleges, it's like 60-40 now between women and men. And every time we have like a new fucking like pandemic or a new recession or whatever, the people that end up having to stay home and take care of the bills and shit are usually men. So they fall even further behind. So yeah, that's basically, it's like queens are out there looking for their kings, but like now the queens are becoming kings and they're looking for like mega super kings, and like the ex kings are like now like paupers and or knights because they can't even work as much anymore. So that's just like, I'm not saying that anybody's to blame there. It's just like complicating like dating standards that are hard for people to kind of catch up to. Yeah,
that's an interesting point. It kind of actually relates to like a point that I had a little later on, which is the whole concept of like the red pill people who think that society or the left has been feminizing men. Mm-hmm. Because they think it's, and maybe it's not the exact same thing that you're talking about here, but I'm curious to hear what you think about like who is feminizing men and how are they, and is it just because like we're basically letting we're letting guys know it's okay to cry, or is there something else going on that I don't know about?
I think progressives are absolutely feminizing men too much. I think yes. I think that there are aspects of masculinity that are absolutely fucking toxic. And I think it's really good that we've called those out and we've gotten rid of those standards. But I think there were aspects of masculinity that are incredibly positive, and it feels like we're really kind of scared to show those role models now, or we don't talk about it as much as we used to, or at least people on the left don't. And that's why if you're looking for like positive role models for masculinity, you've got like fucking Kermit the Frog who almost OD'd on fucking benzos, Jordan Peterson, or you've got Ben Shapiro, or I guess like the red pill community. Like nobody in the left really wants to be a voice for young men, right? It's basically just a bunch of people saying like, oh, you're a man? Well, let me help you here. I'm going to tell you the 15 ways not to rape a woman and to make sure that you're giving space to like intersectional women of color who are trans. It's like, oh, dude, like why are there no more just male role models on the left? Like why does it, you have to look to the right for it? Yeah, and I feel like they've mishandled a lot, like the idea of like what does it mean to like be emotional as a guy or show emotion. It's strange because like in pop media before, I feel like there were really good examples of it in like Disney movies. Shit, right? I feel like I've heard in like 15 different Disney movies, like it's not about not being afraid, son. It's about doing the right thing even when you're scared or whatever. Like that. Like you hear these, and that's like an example of like positive masculinity. But it feels like we've scaled back a lot of that on the left of having any representation for men, and now everything is like girl power, girl power, girl power, which is fine, which is great. I think that's awesome. But it feels like people are really, really scared to address like this growing uneasy trend of men that either feel like they're getting left behind because they are, or they feel like they're getting left behind because there aren't very many new role models, and all the other people are like getting all these new role models and everything, and it just kind of feels like weird to get left out, you know?
Okay, so I hear what you're saying there. I don't think you're wrong per se, but like how is a lack of representation meaning that you're feminizing them? Wouldn't feminizing them be like that they should like start doing more feminine-y things?
I shouldn't say feminizing, I guess, because that's actually got a really negative connotation to it. I should just say like making them weak and worthless.
Oh.
It feels like I'm generalizing so much from my perception of reality right now, so I could be wrong. This is just like perceptions that I have. Here is like one thing that I think has happened, and this probably applies to men and women. Children today seem to have very little tenacity. I feel like we stress is not always bad. You just have to have the tools to deal with it. And rather than empowering people to deal with stressful situations, it seems like our goal in life has been to remove all stress from a person's life, which is not good. And the way that I see people acting on social media, especially Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, and the way that I see kids acting in schools, dude, I just saw, I don't know if it was a fucking troll or not, but I just saw a trigger warning on a thread on Twitter earlier where some girl was like, trigger warning. And then people were like, she was like, trigger warning, and this girl's really hot. And people were like, why the fuck did you put a trigger warning on that? And she's like, well,
wait, the trigger warning was that the fact that she was hot?
No, the fact that she was Chinese. Yeah, she said, I put a trigger warning on because this person is Chinese. And her excuse was, can I explain the trigger warning to everyone, please? Some people with OCD and autism can be triggered by certain races, so that's why I added the trigger warning. I'm personally not bothered by Asian people, but some of my followers might be. Sorry if you might be offended. But just like, and I see stuff like this.
Wait,
and yeah.
What was the thread about?
It was initially it was just her retweeting somebody saying like, oh, you look like really hot. You're so gorgeous, but it was like trigger warning, East Asian, maybe Chinese.
That just sounds racist.
I know, but like, it's just, and I'm not saying that that's necessarily representative, but yeah, like you see so much of this like weird pop up like over and over and over again, and then like all these videos from like all these different college campuses with these professors getting kicked off, hearing about like this crazy like progressive orthodoxy of like you have to believe this thing or else you're gonna get excised from campus, or I'm kind of veering off or whatever, but like it to pull it back, it feels like we have a very difficult time giving stress to children and having them learn how to deal with it, and we're removing their ability to deal with any stress in the real world. It's like a very scary thing. Yeah, I think.
So I think I'm hearing what you're saying, and I think what you're kind of like building here is you're saying rather than like guys being feminized per se, we're like removing things from them, potential parts of their character, and then we're also doing that to kids as we're raising them.
Yeah, I shouldn't say feminized.
Like we're allowing them to be more weak or whatever.
Yeah, weaker. Yeah, less able to deal with like conflict, basically.
Yeah, less confident, and also maybe not relying on their natural instincts as much.
I don't know if I say natural instincts.
In terms of like guys, more so, like because you touched on the toxic masculinity thing. So do you think it's like maybe we're kind of like putting shame towards like what guys naturally?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Like it's hard to balance it. It's hard. It's always hard for everybody to have balance. I wish people could have balance. But like in some cases, like you do want a really strong stoic figure to lead the way and to take charge and to figure out an issue and to be able to put like feelings and emotions and fear aside to like handle issues. But the problem is that the way that would play out in the past is guys would do that until they would go postal and their roommates and then go and shoot up a place because they've got PTSD and they can never talk to anybody, right? Which is obviously bad. But it feels like Yeah, it feels like those like positive. I don't see those positive representations of male masculinity as much. Or I feel like people like demonize men so much. It's just kind of scary. But this is just my perception. Maybe it doesn't play out as much this way in the real world. And it's just what I see a lot on social media and in college.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I see it everywhere, does everybody see it everywhere? In which case, does the perception kind of make it true? Like, it's hard to say, but yeah.
No, I think you're right. Like, there definitely is those online spheres, which then sort of trickle into real life, but they definitely like calcify online, whatever. So yeah, it's kind of unfortunate. And like, I've definitely, I've been in various stages of feminism. Like when I was a young gamer teenager, I used to like hate anything that sounded kind of feminist because for various reasons that were like toxic to myself and women. But and then so I went the other way, and then I got more, and then until I saw a lot more stuff that was like, oh, all men are stupid. And actually at this feminist conference that I went to when I was 21, I believe, there was an older feminist there, and she was just like, we were just doing something very like chill at a table. I think we were like, maybe we had some like a clipboard with names on it that we were like checking off or something. Yeah. And every few moments she's like talking about like how useless men are, and men are just like, and so then I don't know, it's pretty weird. But like I think those people are the minority. I think they're just really loud online.
I would hope so, but like I could go onto Twitter right now and probably all night spam like men, white people, blah 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 blah. I could do that over and over and over again. But if I type one tweet where I'm like black people, like my account might get permabanned. And that's like a pretty common like TOS experience in a lot of places, because I think that like progressives have kind of created this interesting combination of like forms of analysis to give them the ability to kind of like attack anybody they don't like white people saying black people is bad because white people belong to an oppressor class and black people are an oppressed class. And if white people make fun of black people, that's a form of punching down, which is bad. But if black people are attacking white people because they're systemically disadvantaged, them attacking white people is actually a form of empowerment because they're punching up on a class that has more power over them. And like using these like forms of putting together like our hierarchical way of viewing society, you end up creating these environments where it's like, oh cool, you can basically be infinitely racist towards white people or infinitely sexist towards men, and that's actually okay. You get a free pass for that. But if you do it the other way around, you get instantly fucking nuked, which is bad. Like one of the, I don't know if how much you read Reddit. Do you read Reddit a lot?
No, I don't.
Oh, one of the worst subreddits and most hateful subreddits I've ever seen in my entire life, probably worse than fat person hate or anything, is probably the subreddit 2X chromosomes. It's actually...
Oh yeah, I've seen some of that shit. But that's just horrible. Like turf land, right?
No, that's not turf land. That's feminist land. It has nothing to do with turfs. Ironically enough, it's called 2X chromosomes, but they like fight for trans representation on the subreddit, which is kind of funny in its own way. Okay. But yeah, no, like that subreddit is unimaginably hateful. Holy shit. But because it's like shit on men constantly, and like you'll just get posts where it's like, does anybody else just like fucking hate men? Does anybody else hate all fucking men? Anybody see men? And it's like, I remember one popular post that was like, it's not enough to say not all men. It is all men. Because even though not all men are rapists, all men support the men that are rapists by saying hashtag not. It's like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, yeah, I don't know. That
okay,
shit as well.
So what do you think? I feel like there's a thing going on here where it's like, I can kind of understand like some of these people, whether it be black people or feminists or whatever, when they're saying these extreme statements, it's almost like I can see them just needing like a space to vent.
Yes.
Like they need like a safe space to like, yeah, where they can yell stupid shit like I hate all men or whatever, or white people. And it's like, okay, that totally makes sense that you're feeling like that, and that you're totally free to express yourself. But I feel like, yeah, it shouldn't be in the same place.
It shouldn't be like a publicly accessible place. Yeah. Like safe spaces are super valid and super cool. I super support them. I am a huge supporter of safe spaces. Sometimes you want a place where you can just step in and fucking vent and not have to worry about being PC and not have to worry about offending somebody and not have to worry about somebody else's feeling. You just want to vent. That's totally fine and valid. But those can't be like publicly accessible spaces. That's why they're called safe spaces. They're like sectioned or quarantined off from society, and it's an area where just a certain group of people can complain about a certain group of other people.
Yeah, I wonder how that's gonna ever be a thing though, because as soon as you try to do that, they're gonna say that you're just like making them shut up or whatever, or move somewhere else. So
yeah, probably true. Yeah.